بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Apologize for the slight delay today. We ran into some difficulties along the way, but let's get started right away. So we'll start with the questions from last week. So last week in the Aqeedah section, we spoke about logic and reasoning. So if a person's logic goes against what is found in the Quran and the Sunnah, what do we do? Nobody knows? So if you read something in the Quran and you don't understand it, what do? Like, do you choose to believe yourself or what? So raise your hand if you want to answer, please. Allah, okay, pull up your answers. A lot of you answered the questions in the group chat, so pull up whatever answers you had. Yeah. Sorry? Exactly. Jazakallah khair. Remember, we were talking about the concept of logic and using logic to reach, the truth. And we said the problem with logic is that it has its limitations. So logic will get you so far, but it will not give you all the answers. And there are many things, or not many things, but sometimes a person might find themselves in a situation where they do not understand something in the Quran or in the Sunnah. Or perhaps it makes sense, the Quran is telling them one thing, but another thing makes more sense to them. Just a simple example. It's a person, for whatever reason, they don't understand why is it that boys and girls cannot mix, and they're saying like, "Hey, what's the problem? Everybody does it here." And perhaps logically, you haven't reached a stage where you understand it yet, but the Quran is telling you better do it. So if you find yourself in such a situation, the preference is always given to the Quran and the Sunnah. Why? Because we said Quran and Sunnah can never be wrong. The words of Allah Azza wa Jal can never be wrong. However, our logic and our process of thinking, that can be wrong. Make sense? Why is it important to study all the evidences when addressing a certain issue? Yes? It's not very clear. So when I'm, looking at something in Islam, why is it important that I look at all the verses of the Quran and all the Hadith and not, just pick and choose? Yeah.
Because maybe one hadith says, for example, let's take a beard example. One hadith says, shaving your beard is not haram. And then you just look at that, you're just like, this is not haram. And then, but like another person looks at that hadith and looks at all the other hadiths for like your beard, and like other ones show like.
So you have the right ideas. I'll give this one to you. So you have to study all of the evidences that are found in the Quran or found in the Sunnah. And it is not appropriate for you to just pick and choose which hadith you want to read or study and then just disregard all the other hadith in the matter. Okay? And last week I gave an example of the drinking water, remember? I gave an example and I said, should we drink water while standing or sitting? And we said, if you take one hadith that says that you should drink while sitting, you're now ignoring all the other hadiths that say, if you take the one hadith that says that Prophet Muhammad used to drink while standing, and you just choose to ignore all the other hadith that says that he used to drink while sitting down. This is not a good way of approaching a certain issue that you encounter. Because if you take a look at all the hadith to see how did the Prophet ﷺ drink water, you will see that the majority of them, they say that he used to drink while sitting down. So you should not be, and this is a very simple example, I know, but you get the idea. You have to look at all the hadith, and you have to look at all the verses of the Quran that address a certain issue. And as I had mentioned last week as well, in such matters, it is always important to consult a scholar. So go to an imam, go to a scholar, okay, and ask them about this certain issue that you're having. And you will find in the way that they answer you, they will tell you, look, the hadith says this, and that. The Quran says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're going to present everything in front of you. They're not going to tell you just one answer, one line answer. They're like, Yallah, khalas, go. Because of this one hadith. No. Because it's important that we have to study all the evidences when it comes to addressing a certain issue. Is that clear? Yeah? So last week we were talking about the hadith. Remember, the hadith where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen in order to give da'wah for people of the book. And as we were discussing this hadith, we were talking about the importance of being involved in the society that is around you. So why is it important for us as Muslims to involve ourselves in the society that is around us? And how does that really relate to giving da'wah? I forget, was it girls or boys? I think it's the girls. So girls, does anyone want to take a shot? She already answered. Does nobody else want to answer? Nobody else knows the answer? Huh? Okay, I guess you can go again. So we mentioned, yes, it is important to have appropriate knowledge and attitude when giving da'wah. But remember, we spoke about like what happens when, for example, a Muslim lady or a Muslim man, he goes and involves himself with the issues of society. For example, talking about racism and discrimination, things that don't, they affect all of society. It's not just Islam. Why is that beneficial? Like, what's the? You guys, nobody knows at all. Yes. Yeah.
Because you have to know like a certain manner. You need to like.
That no, she said that already. I'm looking for a different answer.
Because, like, you need to know what can like bring them to Islam, like something they might find like good for them, and they might consider Islam.
Okay. Sure. You know what? Sure. Let's just move on. When you are a Muslim, please memorize this point because this is applying to every single one of you. This is why I picked this question. It applies to every single one of you. So if none of you know the answer to this question, we have a problem. Okay? You need to memorize this. You, as a Muslim living in Calgary in the West, try to involve yourself. Try to involve yourself in the society that is around you. Why? Because when the non-Muslims around you see that there is a Muslim boy or a girl who is active in the community, not just the Muslim community, I'm talking about, like I said, this is why I give example of racism and discrimination and social injustice, whatever it is, things that are happening in your school, for example. Like maybe you want to involve yourself in the activities that are happening in your school, planning such activities, taking leadership roles, and them knowing that you are Muslim. Why is this important? Because when they know who you are, and they know your manners, and they know what you stand for, then when you later go and tell them, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslimah, I believe in such and such, it's easier for you to give a da'wah. Does that sort of make sense? Please ask if you don't understand. Because, like I said, this point applies to every one of you. This is how you become a very powerful soldier when it comes to giving da'wah. The strength in giving da'wah is not by me sitting downstairs here in the basement and giving you a lecture. Da'wah, especially in this land, is conveyed through your actions and through your speech and through your interactions with people. This is how you give da'wah to people. So if you cut off your interactions and you just don't interact and you say that they have their own life and I have my own life, they have their own style, I have my own style, while yes, this is, in certain issues, this is fine. But when you disconnect yourself completely from the society that you live in, okay, how are you going to teach them about Islam? How are you going to tell them about Islam? How are they going to find out about Islam if you are choosing to completely dissociate yourself from the society that you're living in? Does that make sense now? Inshallah, a little bit, kind of? Question?
Why would someone
Yeah, and that's another point, right? Like just realize that you, as a Muslim living in a non-Muslim land, you have a responsibility to convey da'wah. That was the whole point of last week's hadith. You have a responsibility to give da'wah. How do you give da'wah? Well, I'm telling you right now, da'wah is shown through your actions and through your speech and your manners and your interactions with others. So don't completely dissociate yourself from the society that you live in, as long as it is within the halal, of course, right? Hopefully, I'm hoping that this point makes sense. Okay, moving on. What is the purpose of giving zakah? We mentioned zakah as part of the last week's hadith. Back to the girls. Come on, girls. I want someone other than her to answer. There's any. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, mashallah, there's over 10 of you. All the 10 of you, nobody knows what is the purpose of zakah? Allahu Akbar. Right, back to the boys. Someone other than these two as well. Yes, you want to answer? Yeah? It is a pillar of Islam, but like what's the benefits of it? It makes the rich poorer? Makes the poor richer, okay. Does it make the rich poorer?
they just like the equalize and like
So you're right. Okay, I'm not trying to like put you on the spot. So you're correct. One of the purposes of zakah is to make the poor person richer because they can take from the zakah money. However, the rich person only has to give a very small amount. So he's not really going to get poor. Okay, and he's going to lose a little bit of money, but overall, the rich stays rich. And this is one of the benefits of zakah, right? To circulate the money. And subhanAllah, zakah is like the opposite of interest, the opposite of riba. Riba, interest, it causes the poor person to become poorer. And it causes the rich person to become richer. And it's a very great evil, and this is why it's haram. Whereas zakah has the opposite effect, and it is also, of course, meant to purify a person's wealth. It is also meant to purify the poor person's heart as well, such that they don't feel any feelings of jealousy or hasad towards, those who are more fortunate than them. Have a question?
you know how like you can get money from
I know you can get money in haram. Yes.
what if someone else got money away and like, that money still
Well, so someone earned haram money, and then he gave you. Yes, please. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. So, okay, so just let me make sure I understand. You're saying someone, let's say your friend, he earned money using the haram, but he has to pay you back. So he pays you back with that money? Is that what you're asking? That's his responsibility, how he earns his money. Okay? His responsibility is to pay you back. So you have nothing to do with it. Okay? How he earns his money is not your responsibility. So whatever, if he pays you back, like let's say he owes you some money and he pays you back, that money is yours. And that money is not haram for you. That money is haram for him. So he should not have earned it in the haram in the first place. So he's responsible. Does that sort of make sense? Okay. Questions? Before we move on? Okay. Can someone, I did it again from the girls. Girls, please, list the conditions of wudu. You can cheat, by the way. You can look at the answers that you yourself wrote and you sent in the group chat. I don't understand. Half of you posted your answers. Yes, in the back. No. Conditions of wudu. What do I need to have before I can do wudu? Yes? Yeah? Yeah, Muslim? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Good. Pure water. And the last one? So you got the majority of them. Good job, Andy. So remember we mentioned last week that before you can even make wudu, you have to have these conditions met. In order for your wudu to get accepted, in order to say that I'm actually in a state of wudu. First of all, a person has to be a Muslim. A person who is a non-Muslim who performs wudu is not in a state of tahara. They're not in a state of wudu. Okay? They just cleaned some body parts. That's all they did. Okay? It's not accepted. They have to have a healthy mind, meaning someone who's not insane, someone who has a healthy mind. He has healthy thinking. He doesn't have any severe mental issues, things like this, right? Number 3, we said the person has to reach the age of discernment, which is the age of tamyiz. Like a little 1-year-old, for example, he doesn't know what is good and what is bad for him. Like you put anything in front of him, he's going to take it and he's going to put it in his mouth. He's going to try to swallow it, right? But when that child grows up a little bit older than this, perhaps a few years old, then he will start to understand that this is good for me, this is bad for me. This is okay, this is not okay. When they reach this age, then now they meet a condition for wudu. Also, we mentioned intention. A person needs to know what they are doing. You cannot, for example, you cannot go swimming and jump into a swimming pool and just swim and then leave the swimming pool and then say, oh, you know what, I just did wudu because I was swimming in the swimming pool. Doesn't work that way. Now, if you had the intention, I want to make wudu while I'm swimming, that's a different story. But let's say I'm just swimming for fun. And then time for salah comes, and you're like, oh, you know what, I need to go make wudu. Oh, wait a second, I was just swimming earlier, so khalas, I have wudu. This is not accepted. And just to mention this again, I know there is a school of thought, that believe that you can have wudu without intention. The evidence for this is very weak, and all the other scholars and schools of thought say that you need to have an intention, and they have very solid proof. So you should always have an intention when you are making wudu, and not just make wudu on autopilot. And I mentioned this before in a previous hadith. Remember, if a person, let's say you're just used to, as soon as you get home from school, you're used to going to use the washroom, and then after you use the washroom, you make wudu. And then one day you were so tired, you just got home, and you're not conscious of what you're doing. You're so deep in thought, that happens to us. We start daydreaming almost. And our body is just operating in autopilot. And then once you're back to reality, you're like, oh, why are my body parts wet? Oh, I was making wudu, that's why. This is a person who did not have an intention to make wudu. So you need to be conscious of your actions, okay? Using pure water, we should all know what is tahur and najis water by this point. And also we mentioned removing any substances that put a barrier between the water and the skin. So any substance that prevents water from reaching the skin must be removed. So we mentioned lotions and cream. Normally when they solidify, right, they form a physical barrier, meaning water cannot reach the skin. This has to be removed unless there is a very, very special case where a person, the doctor told them, never ever take this cream off, otherwise you're going to die or something. That case, an exception is given. But in normal situations, that should be removed. Okay? Same thing with like oils or anything. Okay, that puts a physical barrier. You have a question? A what? A cast is an excuse. If a person's hand is broken and the doctor said you have to put on this cast so that you protect your arm, then you're not going to have to take off the cast and wash it with water because that is going to be harmful to you. So it is allowed. The books of fiqh, they mention it is allowed to wipe. It is allowed to wipe on top of the cast if the need for that arises. Okay. Other questions that were before? Okay, can I move on? Okay, moving on. Next, list the obligatory acts of wudu. What are the fard actions of wudu? Yes, Mr. Yazan in the back. No, 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 no. Yes, Muhammad. Arms up to the elbow. Yes. We said what else? Wiping the head. Your feet up to the ankles. You're still missing two. Who can help? Who can help him? Yeah. By the way, like you, I'll give you the answer. Like you got it right. But who can complete his answer for him? Yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. Okay, pay attention to what he's saying before you answer. Yes. No, 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 no. He already mentioned. We already mentioned washing the face, washing the arms, wiping the head, and washing the feet up to the ankles. What else are we missing? Yes. No, 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 no. يا أخي ما شاء الله, you're answering with so much confidence. يعني it's who can tell me what are the two things that we're missing? Boys or girls, by the way? I'll give one chance to the boys. Yes? Yeah, green shirt. Yeah? No, no. Someone in the girls. Yes? Huh? Doing it in order consecutively. Jazakum Allah khairan. We mentioned washing the face. We mentioned washing the arms up to and including the elbows, right? We mentioned wiping the head, right? And we mentioned last week how to wipe the head according to the Sunnah, and washing the feet up to the ankles. However, you need to do these actions in order. If you decide to wipe your head before you wash your face, this wudu is invalid, according to the majority of scholars. And also, it has to be done consecutively. What does it mean, consecutively? It means you do not delay the washing of the next part, right? Like you cannot go wash your face and then go take a nap and then come back later and then wash your arms. Doesn't work that way. You took way too long in between each step, so therefore the wudu has to be restarted. However, if the delay between washing each part is not too long, then you can still continue the wudu. And we mentioned, who can remind me, how do you know if I took too long? Yes, Ayub? If the previous part has not dried yet. Very good. So meaning, like let's say I wipe my head. Okay, I wipe my head, I wipe my ears, and before I wash my feet, I got a phone call. So I stopped my wudu. And perhaps I even walked out of the washroom and I picked up the phone and I said, hey, assalamu alaikum, look, I'm a little bit busy right now, I'll call you back a little later. And then I walk back to the washroom. My head is still wet. My ears are still wet. I can still continue my wudu. I can still continue washing my feet and up to the ankles, and my wudu is completely valid. But if I take 30 minutes on my phone call and my head dried and my ears dried, I cannot go and continue washing my feet. I have to restart from the beginning. Okay? Do we all understand the obligatory acts of wudu? Yeah? Yes. Because these are the obligatory acts. So, when I say obligatory acts, these are the fard actions, these are the wajib actions, meaning if I only do these actions, my wudu is completely valid. Meaning, someone who goes to the washroom and he doesn't wash his face. Sorry, not face. He doesn't wash his hands. He doesn't rinse his mouth. He doesn't rinse his nose. All he does is walk into the washroom and um, wash the face and wash the arms and wipe the head and wash the feet in order and right after each other. This wudu is valid. This wudu is valid. But is this the wudu that you should be doing? No. Because you are now not doing the wudu according to the sunnah. What is the sunnah? We're going to talk about that today, inshallah. Moving on, subhanAllah, we're still in questions. We need to move on. How did Allah Azza wa Jal prepare Prophet Muhammad for prophethood? I can't wallahi remember at this point. Where's the girls? I think we're in girls. Okay, yes, Maniba. So that's one example. But we mentioned several things. That was one of them, preparing him as a shepherd. But the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal honored him with the best of characters, honored him with the best lineage. Allah Azza wa Jal protected him from falling into evil actions such as paganism and doing evil actions. And Allah Azza wa Jal kept him upon the righteous fitrah despite the Quraysh being upon misguidance. And how did Khadija support Prophet Muhammad during the first revelation? Yes? Yeah? Awesome. So, yeah, so she supported him, right? She supported him when he was experiencing a lot of doubt, and he was very scared for himself, and he was very terrified after he saw Jibreel coming down in the cave of Hira. She calmed him down and she supported him, and she also was the one who took him to the cousin Waraqa bin Nawfal, and he is the one who told him that essentially what he was experiencing is what a normal prophet experiences. Okay, we need to move on. So moving on. So last week we discussed different principles from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah of how do we stay upon the righteous Aqeedah. So we mentioned, for example, that we have to believe completely in the Quran and the Sunnah. There is no such thing as believing in the full Quran except for one verse. That's not believing. You have to believe in the full package, all of the Quran and all of the hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and you do not get to pick and choose. And as we mentioned in the question, it is also important to look at all the evidences regarding a certain issue. And we also mentioned the importance of following the footsteps of the Sahaba and believing the way that the Sahaba believed without having to reinterpret the hadith and the Quran. Okay, like some groups today do, the progressives and the modernists and whatever, they reinterpret. And they say that Islam is too old and the Quran is too old and the hadith is this and that. It's over 1,400 years old and we need to renew it. We don't need to renew it. We need to follow what the Sahaba came with. And also we mentioned the importance of the Arabic language. Because the Quran came down in Arabic, all the hadith came down in Arabic. Therefore, if you want a complete understanding of your deen, it is always beneficial to know and understand the Arabic language. And perhaps this might be a goal for every one of us to go and learn in one point in our lives the Arabic language. Just a reminder, boys and girls, if you want to talk and chit chat, please, you can go outside, go upstairs, do that as much as you want. Do not do that here. Here we are learning. Here we're not here to talk. Please. So next we're going to discuss some common reasons what causes people to lose their faith. What is it that causes people? So now that we define Islamic Aqeedah, we've defined all the features and the principles and whatnot and the sources of Aqeedah. What is it that causes people to drift away from Islamic Aqeedah even though it is so simple to follow? Well, we're going to be mentioning several reasons, and this is by no means a comprehensive list. There's many points to be mentioned. I'm only going to mention a few of them, okay? So today and next week even, we're going to talk about this topic. The first and the most significant reason as to why people fall astray is ignorance. Ignorance. This is currently probably the biggest disaster that our ummah is facing today. The biggest disaster. It is ignorance. Jahl. And jahl can be defined as, someone who doesn't know something. Someone who is ignorant, someone who doesn't know. Because how do you expect to stay upon the Islamic Aqeedah if you have no knowledge of what is even the Islamic Aqeedah? Now, what causes ignorance? As I mentioned, ignorance means someone does not know. He does not possess certain knowledge. However, today, in 2024, we are living in a time where none of you have any excuse to say, I don't know. Because nowadays, you are living in the age of the internet. You are living in a time where, in the click of a few buttons, you have access to all the books you want in the world. You have access to every lecture in the world, to every book in the world. You can literally pick up your phone right now, open the Apple Store or the Play Store, and with a click of a button, you can download all the books of Hadith. Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, all the books of Hadith with a click of a button. And be conscious that back in the day, people didn't have this privilege. People had to travel long distances, journeys, several days under the heat of the sun in the desert, just so that they can learn one hadith, or just so that they can go and find a scholar to explain something to them. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't have certain resources or certain apps that show them a hadith. Whereas today, you have access to all of this for free. You need to realize how spoiled we are today and how easy it is for us to access all this knowledge. So the problem today is not the fact that you don't have access to the knowledge. Rather, the biggest problem that we have today is people are not interested in gaining this knowledge. They don't know Islamic Aqeedah because they simply don't care about Islamic Aqeedah. They're like, yeah, man, it's too boring. This stuff is boring to me. I'd rather go play Fortnite. I'd rather go and play Call of Duty. I'd rather go and watch YouTube and watch TV shows and watch anime and watch and go play soccer and play basketball and do this and that. As soon as you tell them go and learn, it's too boring, you know what? And this is a sad reality today. And probably even today, in this room even, some of us are here not because you want to be here. Some of us are here because my mom or dad dragged me here to the masjid so they can force me to learn. This is a disaster that we are facing in our ummah today. That a person does not care to learn the basics of their deen. The basics of their deen. And all they think about is, I want to be entertained. I want to go and have fun. I want to go and play. I want to go and talk with my friends. I want to do this and that. I want to just enjoy my life 24/7. I want to play and have fun. Yani subhanallah, you entertain yourself to the point where your life has become a joke. Your whole life is a joke. It's nothing but a joke. From start to end, you do nothing useful. All you do is waste time. All you do is play games. All you do is, I want to feel entertained. I want to have fun. And we have, again, I know we probably hear this a lot from the older people, but it's a fact. And by the way, hear this from someone. I am part of your generation, by the way. So I'm saying this about my own people as well, my own generation, okay? We are a generation that is not willing to go and learn our Islamic Aqeedah, but we are willing to go and learn TikTok dances. And we are willing to go and learn Fortnite moves and dances. And we are willing to glue our eyes to our screens 24/7. You cannot spend a day without looking at your phone. You cannot spend a day without going on social media and seeing the things that your friends are posting and seeing what your friends are doing and seeing the you cannot spend a day without going on your gaming console or playing video games. What are you doing with your life? Is my question for you today. If you didn't get anything that I'm saying, just hear this question. What are you doing with your life? Why are you, what are you living to do? And you ask them what they're doing. Oh, I'm killing time. Habibi, you're not killing time. Time is killing you. That's what's happening. Time is killing you. All you care about is eating, drinking, and sleeping, and having fun and entertainment. And subhanallah. And as soon as it comes to Quran, I don't want to. I would rather do something else. As soon as it comes to the time of Salah, I just prayed. It feels like 5 minutes ago I just prayed. Let me just go watch one more video. Or you know what? Let me go and set a world record for the fastest Salah that has ever been prayed. Yani subhanallah. And some of us, subhanallah, some of us might be laughing at this. Some of us might be finding this funny. But this is a genuine problem. And because of this problem, today we have a generation that can name you every soccer player that can put on the screen. A generation that can recognize every rapper and every musician and can probably even recite some of their lyrics to me. And they can recognize every movie and every actor. Yet if I were to ask them, just name me 10 Sahaba, 10 Sahaba, any 10 Sahaba, they will not be able to do this. Name me 10 of the names of Allah. Allah Azza wa Jalla has 99 names. Just name me 10 of them. They will not be even be able to do this. If you ask them what is obligatory in your salah, what are the obligatory acts in your salah, they don't know. Even though this is basic information in our religion. So the point here is, I don't mean to make you feel bad, okay? I don't mean to make you feel bad. But you have to be very careful of falling into this disease, because it's a disease. Ignorance today is a catastrophe of our times. It's a major problem. Now, by the way, just so that you're not completely confused, if you want to go have fun, go and have fun. I'm not telling you don't have fun. I'm not telling you, no, you must open the Quran and pray 24 hours in your day, otherwise you are not doing. This is not what I am saying. You want to go and have fun, have fun. You want to go play soccer, play soccer. You want to play video games, play video games. However, don't make that your entire life. Dedicate some time to learning. Dedicate some time to know your own religion. No matter how uninteresting it seems to you, no matter how boring and uninteresting it seems to you, and dry, realize that you are a Muslim and that you are living this life currently not for the purpose of entertainment. You are living this life for the purpose of worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal. So dedicate at least a portion of your day to learn some basics of your deen. Arm yourself with knowledge, what is good and what is evil. There's a hadith that Hudayfa ibn Yaman radiyallahu anhu, it's a famous hadith, it's a long hadith, that he would say, كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. That the people used to go to Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم and ask him, what are some good deeds that I could be doing? What are good things that I should be doing in my life? However, Hudayfa would say, I used to go and ask him, what are the evil deeds that a person can be doing? Why? Because if I recognize what is evil, then I know how to avoid the evil. Okay? And this is a key piece of information. If I can identify what is evil, then I know how to avoid that which is evil. And you will not truly learn to appreciate your Islam and your deen and your religion. You will not truly have a complete love for your faith until you go and learn what was the world like before Islam. When you go and read about the world during Jahiliyyah, you will come to appreciate what Islam has come to give you. And when you go and learn about the stories of the previous nations and all that, you will come to develop a love for your deen. So to conclude, ignorance is a dangerous disease. And if you want to protect yourself from going astray, you have to go and you have to learn your religion. Okay? Of the reasons that people fall astray, one of the main causes of deviations is following leaders who take you upon the path of misguidance. And this is another big issue that we are facing today. Because today, the general trend of the world, okay, the general trend of the world is that everybody follows whatever is popular, okay? That everybody just follows whatever is happening. And, okay, well, who introduces whatever is popular in the world? It's normally tends to be the famous and the rich people, isn't it? You know, soccer players, actors, musicians, rappers, YouTube channels, streamers, whatever it is. All of these people whom people give attention to and give them reputation, these are the people who normally determine the trend around the world. And you find people dressing the same way that a certain soccer player dresses, or having the same haircut that a certain rapper has, or wearing the same chains that a certain person wears just because, oh, yeah, it looks so fresh and cool, bro. Subhanallah. And the existence of, honestly, existence of platforms like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok have not made this matter any better, because you can easily click on their page and you can click the follow button, and all of a sudden you are on top of the latest trends. You know everything that you are doing. So whenever a certain rapper starts to wear chains, oh, you know what? I want to start wearing chains as well. If a certain YouTuber starts to has a certain shaves his head in a certain way, oh, you know what? I'm a big fan. Let me go and shave my head as well in a certain way as well. Or if a basketball player wears a certain kind of shoes, then you know what? I want to buy that same shoes and I want to follow them as well. And subhanallah, are these your role models? These are the people that you look up to? These are the people that you want to copy and become like? So just because a singer has a nice voice, you want to copy that singer? Just because a soccer player is, mashallah, he's so good at scoring goals and so good at dribbling that khalas, your whole life is an addiction and an obsession with this person? Subhanallah, listen to this hadith. The same hadith which I was mentioning earlier, by the way, by Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. He says, Prophet Muhammad says that there will be people, okay, دعاة على أبواب جهنم من أجابهم إليها قذفوه فيها. That there will be people, so authentic hadith by the way, found Sahih Bukhari, that there will be people who are standing at the gates of Jahannam and calling people towards Jahannam, inviting people towards Jahannam. And whoever responds to their call, those will be the people to push them into Jahannam. It's a very, very explicit hadith. If you follow these people, they will push you into the hellfire. This is why I am saying, think very carefully whom you are choosing to follow. That same singer, the same rapper that you are such a big fan of, that you are able to memorize their lyrics and sing them on the top of your head, callers towards the gates of Jahannam. Not only are they creating music, which is haram in the first place and evil, but they have, just think about this for a second, wallahi, they have misguided mankind today to the point where wallahi people are not able to even walk without having something in their ears. Think about this. Everywhere you go, whether it is in school, or whether it is in downtown, or whether it is in the mall, or whether it is in the train, or in the gym, or the bus, people cannot even live their lives and sit properly without having something in their ears, without having something playing in their ears and listening to music. What are you listening to? What are you listening to? And I always have people, this is the most common question I get from the kids, why is music haram? Well, what are you listening to in the first place? You're listening to the rapper who is literally singing about when I see this lady, I'm going to do this and this to her, and I'm going to do that and this to her. And you know that it is haram, yet you're nodding your head to it. Oh man, it's fire lyrics, man. Or the lady that says, look, when I see this handsome man, it makes me feel some kind of way, and I want to do this and this with her. And you're just like, yeah, that's such a good song, man. It touches my heart so much. Touches what, Habibi? Is this the role model that you want to follow? Is this the person that you want to end up with in the day of judgment? You have to think about this very closely. That soccer or the basketball player that you are so obsessed with because they are good at their sport, yet every night they spend their night with a different woman. And they spend their nights in nightclubs drinking and doing drugs. Dear Muslim, is this the role model you want to be following? This is the person you want to become like? The actress who appears in all of the famous movies and in the cool movies, but she always shows up to events with a skin-tight dress that is probably revealing more than half of her own body and revealing all of her thighs and revealing, and she's putting 10 kilograms of makeup on her face and she's posing all kind of poses to the cameras. Is this the person you want to choose as your role model? Like, are you out of your mind as a Muslim or a Muslimah? These are the people that you are choosing to follow as your own role models. This is a big deal. And this is one of the main reasons why people fall off their Islamic Aqeedah. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he says, إِنَّمَا أَخَافُ عَلَى أُمَّتي الْأَئِمَّةَ الْمُضِلِّينَ. I worry for my ummah from leaders that will come to lead them astray. So, be careful whom you are choosing to follow. Be careful who you pick as your role model. Because ask yourself, this person that I'm following, is this the person that I want to be next to on the day of judgment? Knowing the things that they do in their lives, is this the person that I want to be resurrected next to on the day of judgment? Because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells us that a person will be resurrected with the people that they love. So, you love Cristiano Ronaldo so much, Habibi. You want to be resurrected with him on the day of judgment? You love Eminem or Ariana Grande or whatever other musicians you guys listening to. Is this the person you want to be standing next to on the day of judgment? Would you be rather standing with that group, or would you rather be standing with a group of believers? I know for myself, I don't want to be anywhere close to those people whom I know will be entering the hellfire if Allah Azza wa Jalla does not guide them. This is another important cause of why people fall astray. And there are examples of this. We'll breeze through them very quickly because I think I gave enough examples. But Allah Azza wa Jalla also mentions the examples of previous people who misled their people. And of them is a man by the name of As-Samiri. And his story is mentioned in the Quran. And again, I'm just going to summarize very quickly because I think I discussed this. I think I made it clear enough already. As-Samiri is a man who was alive at the time of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Okay? Now, whether is he from Banu Israel or is he someone who met with Banu Israel, Allahu alam, but either way, he interacted with the Banu Israel. Okay? And there was a time where Prophet Musa alayhi salam, this is after Fir'aun, by the way. Like, imagine Banu Israel, they saw all the miracles of Musa alayhi salam, they saw the splitting of the sea, they walked on the dry land of the sea. You would think that these people would never disbelieve again, and that they would always worship Allah for the rest of their lives. All it takes is for one man to show up. One man whom they look up to, and they love and they respect, to misguide them and change everything that they are doing. And this is exactly what happened. Prophet Musa left the Banu Israel, they were believers. And he said, look, I'm going to leave. I need to go to the mountain of At-Tur. I need to speak with Allah Azza wa Jal. And he was receiving the commandments from Allah Azza wa Jal. And so when he left, As-Samiri came in. And he said, oh, I also, I saw Jibreel, riding on a mount, and I took some of his dirt. And so he took, allegedly from the horse of Jibreel alayhi salam, he took a bunch of gold and precious materials, and he crafted a golden calf. 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 Okay. Um, like a baby cow. Okay. خلاص, I'll just say baby cow. um, made out of gold. And he constructed it in such a way that, it was a very impressive construction, that whenever the wind blew, the the baby cow, the golden baby cow, it would start to make a mooing sound. And he told the people that this is your God, and this is the God that Musa worships. So he told them, worship this God. This is the God that Musa worships. And so Banu Israel worshipped the baby, golden baby cow. Okay? All because it took one man to introduce a new idea to them, and he somehow convinced them that this is true. And Musa alayhi salam, he came back and he was very angry at his people, and he then went and destroyed the golden baby cow. Right? So As-Samiri is one example. Another example is a man by the name of Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i. Did you ever wonder how did Quraysh begin worshipping idols? This is the man. This is the man. Once upon a time, hundreds of years before Quraysh, uh, there was a tribe called the tribe of Khuza'a, and they used to be in control of Mecca at the time. And Amr ibn Luhay, he was one of the leaders of the tribe. His people loved him. His people respected him. He was an honest man. He was a generous man. He was a good person to his people. And so his people, so when he left, one time he went on a trip and he came back and he put an idol in front of the Kaaba. And he told his people that this idol will give you power. This idol, it will give you wealth and power. It will give you rain and it will give you everything that you want. So you need to worship this idol. One man is all it took to misguide an entire tribe and cause them to put idols in front of the Kaaba. Can you imagine this? All it took is one man. And then, of course, Prophet ﷺ later tells us that Amr ibn Luhay is going to be severely punished in Jahannam because he was the first person to change the religion of Ismail alayhi salam. Of the reasons as well that causes people to get misguided, we'll mention two more reasons, is following every whim and desire that comes to you. That whatever comes to my mind, I'm going to do it. Whatever my body tells me to do, I'm going to do it. And this is a problem. Now you need to realize desires, everybody has desires, okay? Every single human being, as part of your existence, you have desires. You need desires to live. A person who is hungry has the desire to eat food. A person who is tired has the desire to sleep. And so on. These are not wrong desires, okay? But naturally as well, a person may also be exposed to negative desires. For example, a person might have a desire. Again, we're human, and every single one of us gets these evil desires as well. Maybe perhaps you find the desire that, okay, you know what? Nobody is watching me right now. I'm gonna go and look at something haram. I'm gonna go watch something haram. Look at something indecent or appropriate. Or I'm gonna listen to something that is haram. This is a desire. Okay? Or I'm sitting with a group of friends and I can see that one kid over there, and I have the desire to make a joke out of that person and make fun of them and harm them, just so I can make the boys laugh, and make fun and make fun of that person. This is also a desire. But you need to realize that not every desire is meant to be acted upon. And you are not held responsible for your desires. You are, however, held responsible for your actions. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you a brain. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you intelligence so that you can distinguish what is a good desire and what is a bad desire. And this is why when you get a desire, you need to ask yourself at that very exact moment, ask yourself, who is my God? Who is my God? Who am I worshipping? Am I worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, or am I worshipping something else? When I get the desire to steal, who am I worshipping? Am I worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, or am I worshipping money? When I get a desire to to do something haram and I'm convincing myself that it is halal. Ask yourself, who is my God? Am I worshipping myself or am I worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal? You need to be honest with yourself when it comes to these questions. It's easy for someone to say, I worship Allah, but it's actions that speak for themselves, not your words. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ أَفَأَنْتَ تَكُونُ عَلَيْهِ وَكِيلًا أَمْ تَحْسَبُ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُم يَسْمَعُونَ أَوْ يَعْقِلُونَ إِنْهُمْ إِلَّا كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. That Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, have you seen the one who takes their own desires as their God? Are you going to be now, speaking to Prophet ﷺ, are you going to be now responsible for them? Do you think that any of them, this is Allah saying this, do you think that any of these people who follow their desires are capable of listening or understanding or thinking? Rather, they are like animals. That's what Allah calls them, animals. They are like animals, and in fact, they are worse than animals. Why would Allah Azza wa Jal be so strict in His speech and say that these people are worse than animals? Very simple. Because Allah Azza wa Jal created animals without intelligence. When an animal wants to eat, it goes and finds something to eat. When an animal wants to sleep, it sleeps right where it's standing. When an animal wants to poop, it's going to poop right where it's standing. It's not going to go to somewhere where it's away from the people and close the door and lock the door. No. An animal is created just to follow its desires. However, you, the human being, you have been given intelligence to know what is good and what is bad. So therefore, when you choose to purposely follow the evil, then you are now someone who is even worse than the animal. Because the animal has an excuse. He doesn't have intelligence. You don't have an excuse. You know that it is evil and you're choosing to follow it, then you're worse than an animal. According to Allah Azza wa Jal, this person becomes worse than an animal. And Allah Azza wa Jal also says in a different verse, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنِ اتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ بِغَيْرِ هُدًى مِنَ اللَّهِ. How misguided is the person who follows their desires without looking at the guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is another reason. This is a big reason as well for people that start to lose their faith and to start to reinterpret different texts and come up with newer versions of Islam. This is the whole reason, following whims and desires. The last reason which we will mention about why people drift away from Islamic Aqeedah, and inshallah, I would hope to assume that nobody here does any of this stuff I'm about to mention, but I think it's important for you to be aware of it, that it is happening today as we speak. You think that this is stuff from the past. This is something happening as we speak today in 2024. And that is exaggerating the status of righteous people. What does this mean? And by the way, this is exactly how many of the previous nations began worshipping idols, and how some of the religions today became to be. Because they took a righteous person and they honored him to such a point where they put him as a god, essentially. And for an example of this, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He gives an example. The Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, Allah says in Surah Nuh, وَقَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَتَكُمْ وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ وَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَسْرًا. What is Wad and Suwa' and Yaghuth and Ya'uq and Nasr? These are the names of people. These are the names of people. And it is said that these people were very good people. They were very generous people. They were loved by their society. So what happened when they died? The people said, you know what? Let's build statues of them so that we can remember who they are. We can remember all the good that they did in their life. But what happened? Honoring, first remembering became honoring. Honoring then transformed into seeking blessing through them. And then seeking blessing through them eventually turned into worshipping. And they said that these are our gods and these are our idols. What do you think today Buddhism is? Buddha, right? Who do you think Buddha is? So he's a human being, he's a good person. But once again, the same idea. Raising him to a higher status than he is caused people to take him as a god. Jesus for Christians. Why do you think they worship Prophet Isa alayhi salam? Because they raised his status and they exaggerated whom he was to the point where they started worshipping him as a god. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us of this. He warned us of this. He says, uh, uh, um, um, that not to, there's many incidents. For example, one time a Sahabi, he came in and he started praising Prophet Muhammad so much that you are the most generous of us and you are the best of us and you are this and that and this and that. He told him, and he told the Sahaba, do not praise me the same way like the Christians did with Prophet Isa alayhi salam. And he said, look, I am a servant of Allah just like you. And what is this? Allahu Akbar. Are you ready? MashaAllah. What was that? What was the scream? I felt like I felt someone like their soul was being taken out of their body. What is this? Okay. Anyways. Anyways, let's just pretend that didn't happen. Let's just keep moving on, Yahi. Anyways, we were saying what? Exaggerating the status of righteous people. So Prophet Muhammad, he said, don't do this. Now the reason I am mentioning this today nowadays, for the most part, Muslims don't worship statues, okay? They don't make sujood to statues anymore. But what they do still to this day is something similar, and that is to, for example, honor the graves of the righteous people. So to this day, there are Muslims, and this is, by the way, a picture from Google. Like to this day, you can find tons of pictures like this on Google. People going to the graves of really, really good people, really good sheikhs, really good imams, knowledgeable people, or maybe sometimes even Sahaba. And they go and they start making sujood to that grave. Or they start making dua to the person who is dead. Or they seek blessing from the person who is dead. And they start doing these haram actions around people's graves. Like, can you imagine this? Like, it might sound unthinkable, but I'm telling you, this is happening in many cultures to this day. That thinking just because these people are good people that we can invoke Allah through them. And this is shirk and this is haram, completely haram. Even more so when it comes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We mentioned this before many times at this point. We love Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We respect Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, he is nothing but a human being. He's the best human being, but he's still a human being at the end of the day. We love him, we respect him, but he does not have superpowers. He's not a god, okay? And this is also a problem found in some cultures. I know it's found in my culture. That sometimes people use this phrase that when they're making dua, and they start saying, Bijah Nabi. That, oh Allah, I am making dua to you through the great and the blessed status of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so I ask you to accept this dua. This is not allowed. You're not allowed to invoke Allah Azza wa Jal by saying, oh, I'm going to go through Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a form of shirk, and it is impermissible. And there are, again, many examples of this found to this day, but we have to be careful of this. And if we have found, it is found also in the hadith, found in the Nasa'i, that Ibn Abbas, he narrates and he says that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, إياكم والغلو في الدين فإنما أهلك من كان قبلكم الغلو في الدين. That be very careful of exaggerating, going to extremes, because what caused the people before you to get destroyed and misguided was the fact that they went to extremes in their deen. The Shia today are the exact same thing, by the way. The Shias, what are the Shias? The Shias, some branches of Shias at least, there are people who took Ali bin Abi Talib, who is a very righteous Sahabi, he's a very good Sahabi that we love and respect, and they raised him above his status. And they gave him superpowers, and they say that he knows the knowledge of the unseen, and that he is the chosen person, and that he has these mysterious powers and whatnot, and that has caused them to become misguided as well. So all of these, and we're going to continue next week and mention different reasons as to why people get misguided from the Islamic Aqeedah. Are there any questions before we move on? Any questions? Raise your hand up high if you, because I can see it, please. Yes, you have a question?
So it's like
Janazah prayer is different. Okay? You're not praying to the person. You're praying to Allah Azza wa Jal for that person. Okay? That's a big difference. I'm talking about people who pray to the person. A person who's dead. Like, what's a dead person going to do to you? How is a person who's khalas underground and he's dead and he cannot move? How is that person going to help you? The problem is people who pray to them, not to Allah. Understand? Yeah. So the people who got turned into idols, yani, are you going to blame Isa alayhi salam because they put him in a cross and they started worshipping him? He said he's a good prophet, but he didn't, and he never told the people to do this. The people decided to do this after him, so the people are responsible, not him. Yeah. Any other questions before we move on? Oh, we need to move on. The time always gets the best of us. Subhanallah. Yes. So we're okay. Let's go straight into the hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأتي الشيطان أحدكم فيقول من خلق كذا وكذا. That shaitan would come to one of you and he would say, he would ask you like, who created this and this? Like, imagine you're taking a walk in the park. And shaitan will whisper to you, who created this tree? Allah Azza wa Jal. Who created this river? Allah Azza wa Jal. Who created this and that? Allah Azza wa Jal. And he's going to keep questioning you until he lays a trap to you. And he's going to ask you, oh, well, حتى يقول له من خلق ربك, until he gets you to ask, who created your Lord? فإذا بلغ ذلك فليستعذ بالله ولينته. If a person gets to the stage, then let him seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan and let him خلاص put a stop to these thoughts. So before we move on, we already probably spoke about who Abu Hurairah is, so we don't need to repeat that. But anyone want to share anything from this hadith before we go and explain it? Yep. So, Jazakumullah khair. And we're going to discuss exactly the points that you mentioned. Okay. So it's a short hadith, but there are a couple very, very important concepts to understand. Obviously, the first point that we learn from the hadith is the importance of seeking refuge in Allah from the shaitan. Because the hadith is telling us about shaitan and the whisperings of shaitan and the influence of shaitan, where through his whisperings, the shaitan can get a person to start doubting the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal, or to start asking things which they should not be asking. And in order for us to understand how do we protect ourselves from shaitan, first we need to know who we are dealing with. What is shaitan, or who is shaitan in the first place? Shaitan, okay? Shaitan is an evil jinn. This is the definition of what is shaitan. When we say shaitan, we are talking about an evil jinn. And every single one of us, since the moment you were born, a shaitan was assigned to you. And his whole mission in life is to go and misguide you, and to mislead you, and to stop you from worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. So shaitan is an evil jinn. Now what is a jinn? Jinn is another creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, just like human beings. Okay? And jinn, just like human beings, jinn have good deeds and jinn have bad deeds. Jinn will be questioned on the day of judgment, and they will have Jannah and they will have Jahannam. Jinn, just like human beings, they eat. Just like human beings, they have families. Just like human beings, they have animals also. Okay? So a jinn is not a supernatural or a paranormal being. Okay? I need to make this clear, because nowadays, if you go and watch horror movies, They will show you that that there is an evil spirit in the house, and that objects are flying around the house, and things are and yani, objects are being thrown and smashed on the wall, and lights are being flicking on and off and on and off, right? Like this is what they show you in horror movies. Uh, this is this is all fiction, okay? This is all fiction, and yani, so this is what I'm saying. Boys and girls, if you're sitting home alone and you hear a creaking sound coming from your basement, that probably means you need to replace your fridge, okay? Or replace or renovate your house a little bit, okay? Because a jinn has better things to do than to play with your light switch and turn it on and off, okay? They have better things to do in their lives, okay? So a jinn is not a supernatural being. It is not a paranormal being. It is a superhuman being. What does superhuman mean? Meaning it has abilities that humans do not. And there are many creatures that are superhuman beings. A horse is a superhuman being. Why is a horse superhuman? Because a horse runs faster than a human being. We cannot run as fast as a horse. A camel is a superhuman being because it can lift more than humans can. It can lift hundreds of kilograms and walk for several days. It's a superhuman ability. That we don't say horses are supernatural, okay? So the same thing. Jinn are not supernatural, they are superhuman. Meaning they have certain qualities that humans do not have. Of the qualities that they have is that they are invisible. You cannot see them, but they can see you. Okay? That's what tends to people make people think that they are spooky creatures and whatnot. Okay? So they are invisible. You cannot see them. Of their qualities is they are very fast. Okay? Because they don't have a physical form. They are very fast. And of the qualities as well is that they are very strong. Physically strong, I mean. They are stronger physically than a human being. They can lift more things and have much heavier things than human beings. But as I mentioned, that does not make them supernatural. In addition to this, shaytan has an inferiority complex towards human beings. Okay? Ever since Allah Azza wa Jal created Adam alayhi salam, and he decided to honor Adam, Iblis felt since day one that he was better than Adam alayhi salam, and that he was the one who deserved to be honored. And because of this inferiority complex, this caused shaitan to khalas, set his mind that I am going to spend my entire life misleading and misguiding mankind. Now, this is all, by the way, it's like a very small gist. I'm just giving you a general idea. But at first, when you hear all of these things, it does sound for a second that shaitan is superior. That, oh, okay, he's invisible. He can see us, we can't see him. He can whisper to us, we can't whisper to him. They're faster, they're stronger physically. They can do things that we cannot do. So, how are you saying that humans are better than shaitan? Well, because Allah Azza wa Jal honored mankind with something that shaitan and jinn do not have, and that is knowledge and intelligence. Allah Azza wa Jal gave Adam knowledge that Iblis did not have. And to this day, one of the reasons why shaitan is so angry and bitter towards mankind is because they know that mankind, Allah Azza wa Jal preferred them by granting them more knowledge and intelligence. So either way, if I'm saying that this shaitan is invisible and he wants to misguide me and mislead me and he's faster and stronger and all of these things, how do I protect myself? Well, first of all, you need to understand there is nothing physically that you can do. Okay? You cannot punch shaitan, okay? You cannot go have a fight, physical fist fight with shaitan, okay? And be like, yeah, come at me, okay? You cannot physically fight the shaitan. You cannot yell at shaitan and be like, hey, get out of my house, get away from me, okay? You cannot do this. That's not going to do anything, okay? So at a glance, it seems like this is a very unfair fight that Allah Azza wa Jal began. That Allah put shaitan and put us, and He put us in war with each other. But okay, how is this a fair fight? Well, Allah Azza wa Jal gave you a weapon that you can use against a shaitan. And that weapon is the strongest weapon that you can wield against shaitan, and that is the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. The book of Allah Azza wa Jal, the Quran. The Quran is not something that is only meant to be read and memorized just for the sake of reading and memorizing. Quran is also used as a weapon against shaitan, because shaitan cannot withstand Quran at all. Shaitan hates the Quran. Shaitan will not stay in a place where Quran is being read. And shaitan, if he is forced to be in a place where Quran is being read, shaitan will burn. Shaitan will feel pain. Shaitan will feel tortured. He will try to do anything just to get this Quran to stop being recited. Because they cannot withstand the Quran. Especially things like Surah Al-Baqarah. Especially things like Ayatul Kursi. Especially things like Surah Al-Ikhlas and Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas. And this is why when your Quran teachers push you and your parents push you to memorize Quran, it's not only for you to read and memorize Quran, it is also for you to protect yourselves. And really, if you do not have Ayatul Kursi memorized and Surah Al-Ikhlas and the Falaq and Al-Nas, and I don't know what you're doing. You need to go and memorize them, right? Like as soon as possible. And if you do not have them memorized, then at least have something that you can read them, so that you protect yourself from the shaitan. So the only way that we can possibly protect ourselves from shaitan is through Allah Azza wa Jal. So we are told, for example, someone who says, the Quran tells us that whenever you are being touched or afflicted by shaitan, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ, seek refuge in Allah. Say, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. So if you start ever thinking bad thoughts, evil thoughts, or whenever you are feeling angry, and you're feeling very, very frustrated and angry, or even sometimes we find ourselves having imaginary arguments in our head. We all have had this at one point. Sometimes you get in a fight maybe with your friend, and your friend upset you and he said insulting things to you. And then on your way home when you're by yourself, you're thinking about the things that he said. And you're saying, Wallahi, when I see him next time, I'm going to say this and this to him. And then you start to imagine what he's going to respond. And you're going to say, oh, when I say this to him, he's going to respond in this way. When he responds in this way, I'm going to say this back to him. And then he's going to respond in this way, and I'm going to say that. Who are you arguing with right now? You're sitting alone by yourself. Like on the outside, you're just sitting like this. But you're having a war in your head. Who are you arguing with? This is shaitan playing in your head. So this is shaitan taking advantage of your anger. Say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. This is one of the weapons that Allah Azza wa Jal and Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam teach us to use against the shaitan. And in addition, if I haven't emphasized that already, keeping the recitation of the Quran. The Quran needs to be a part of your daily life. Quran is not a chore. Quran is not a punishment that, oh, my teacher told me I have to memorize these verses and read these verses. Oh my God, I don't want to do this at all. Quran is a necessity in your life. The same way that you cannot survive without eating and drinking and sleeping, you cannot survive without Quran. And if Quran is not a part of your daily life, you are leaving yourself completely exposed. You're like yelling to shaitan, shaitan, come get me. That's what you're doing if you do not make Quran a part of your life. Shaitan will not enter a house, will not bother enter a house where the Quran is constantly being recited. Why will he put himself in danger? He will not enter a place where Quran is always being recited, where a house where people are always praying, reciting the Quran out loud. However, if there is a house where Quran is rarely being recited and prayers are barely being offered, don't be surprised that this house is now a nightclub for the shaitans. That every night the shaitans say, Yalla ya shabab, let's go into this house, let's go have a good time in this guy's house. And this whole house becomes shaitan. And subhanallah. And if you are, by the way, someone who is struggling with nightmares, someone who is struggling with sleep paralysis even, okay, then know that this is shaitan around you. And this is shaitan scaring you and shaitan exerting his influence on you. How do you protect yourself? Once again, through the Quran. Make sure before you sleep you are reciting Ayatul Kursi. and reciting the mu'awadat and reciting al-ikhlas and al-falaq and al-nas, you need to be reciting and protecting these verses and protecting yourself with them. And lastly, of the ways that we are told to protect ourselves is through the adhkar which are taught to us through the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, you have no excuse to say that I don't know what they are. When I tell you what are the morning adhkar and you say I don't know, blame yourself. You have no excuse. You are living in the age of internet. 2 buttons is all you need to click and you will find a whole list of adhkar al-sabah and adhkar al-nasa. Okay? So you need to fortify yourself, put barriers around you, protect yourself through these adhkar. Saying the morning adhkar will protect you from any harm until the night. Saying the evening adhkar will protect you from any harm until the morning. Saying Bismillah, and by the way, when you eat at home, make sure everyone on the table says Bismillah as well, not just you, so that shaytan does not eat with you. And shaytan does eat with you. And people sometimes they think this is like a fiction or fairy tale that shaitan's gonna eat with. No, shaitan is there sitting like right next to you, and he's taking some of your biryani and he's drinking some of your juice and taking enjoying mashallah some of your ice cream. So Bismillah. Say Bismillah when you eat so that shaitan does not eat with you. When you enter the washroom, we mentioned this in fiqh. You say the adhkar, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith, so that Allah puts a barrier between you and the shaitan that is in the shayateen that is in the washroom. When you leave your house, say the dua, Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Because the shaitan will look at this person and will say, how can we ever harm this person? When Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen to protect this person. How can we ever harm this person? Or when you enter back into your house, you say Bismillah, Bismillah walajna wa Bismillah kharajna wa ala rabbina tawakkalna, right? This is extremely important so that shaitan does not enter the house with you. And believe me when I say the majority of the suffering that people have and the majority of the problems that they encounter is because they are not protecting themselves from shaitan. And they are allowing shaitan to interfere with their life. And subhanAllah, you always hear this. People coming to the masjid and complaining, oh Shaykh, I'm always finding myself fighting with my wife. Or sometimes kids come and they say, my mom and dad, they are always fighting and bickering and yelling and screaming and swearing and this and that. Okay, is Quran being recited in your house? No. Are there prayers being given in your house? No. Does anyone say adhkar in your house? No. Do you say the adhkar when you enter your house? No. Why are you surprised then? Shaitan is everywhere in your house. MashaAllah, how many shaitans in your house now? Like, they have a camping trip in your house from how much you've opened up your house to expose it. So you need to get serious. You need to protect yourself through all of these different means. Anyways, moving on. Despite all of this which I mentioned, shaitan still remains to be a very weak creature. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. Shaitan is a very weak creature, despite the qualities which I had mentioned to you earlier. How come they are weak? Because all that the shaitan can do to a believer is waswasa, whispering. All that's all they can do. They can't control your actions, okay? So when shaitan sees that you are about to go and make wudu and start praying, whenever he sees you, okay, he succeeded, he got you to fall into a sin, but then he saw that you felt regret and you wanted to go make istighfar and to make tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jal. Whenever he starts to see you doing very well, he is going to freak out, really, because you're about to ruin all of his plans. So he's going to start to freak out, and he's going to whisper anything in your head just to stop you from what you're about to do. So if you get up to pray, he might come to you and whisper, Ya akhi, you still have some time a little bit. Go look at the thumbnail of the next YouTube video. It looks so interesting. Just one more video. One more video is all you gotta do. Come on. Just one more game of Fortnite. One more game of Call of Duty. It's not gonna affect you. You're not gonna miss the prayer. Okay? This is whisperings of shaitan. Okay? If you get up to go and make tawbah, shaitan really freaks out because all the hard work that he has put and all the traps that he has put to get you to fall and into sinning, that is all about to get ruined. So because if you seek Allah's forgiveness and Allah forgives you, then all the work that shaitan has done has gone to waste. So he will perhaps come to a person who has done a sin And he will tell them, you think that Allah is going to forgive you? That He's going to forgive you after the things that you said, after the things that you did, after all the disgusting actions that you did? You think that Allah is not going to forgive you? Get serious, man. Allah will never forgive you. And so shaitan will try to cause you to feel depressed. Or sometimes he comes the opposite way. And he says, MashaAllah, look at you. You went to the masjid today. It's a Sunday, it's a weekend. You came to the masjid, you attended the lecture, you prayed jama'ah. Khalas, ya it's enough. Well, you're going to go again at home and open the Quran and all that stuff. You don't need to do that. Khalas, you did enough for today. So he's going to convince you one way or another to stop the good that you are about to do through his whisperings. But at the end of the day, whisperings are nothing but whisperings. And they are nothing but annoying voices that you hear in your head. And this is why when you say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, that's it. You've just defeated shaitan. That's it. It's as simple as that. Okay? And shaitan runs away. When he hears the name of Allah mentioned, this is why Allah says, Allah calls him in the Quran Al-Waswas Al-Khannas. What does Al-Khannas mean? The shaitan who comes and goes. He disappears, then he leaves. And he comes back and then he goes again. Because he leaves whenever you say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So shaitan is a very weak and he's a very incapable creature. He will never ever have control over you unless you allow him to have control over you. So you need to protect yourself, fortify yourself with the adhkars and with the du'as and with the Quran, as we had previously mentioned. Last but not least, we'll mention about the hadith. This point about inappropriate questions, okay? Because this always tends to be almost like a taboo topic for some Muslims. The hadith tells us that sometimes the nature of the whispers will come in the form where shaitan tricks a person to start thinking about questions which will put you in a spiral, okay? You will never find the answer to them. So for example, the hadith mentions that, oh, if Allah created everything, Allah created the trees, and Allah created you, who created Allah? And then he will leave it at that. Or he will say things, for example, what do you think? He'll whisper to you, oh, what do you think Allah looks like? Astaghfirullah. These are just whisperings of shaitan. And this is, of course, this is why we say that they are inappropriate questions, because they are coming from shaitan, and this is an attempt from shaitan to get you to start doubting your own religion. Now, before I talk about these questions and how do we deal with them, there's an important point that we need to mention. And that is, when someone comes to you, okay, and he asks you the question, let's say, for example, who created Allah? It's extremely important that you do not lash out at this person. And do not say, Astaghfirullah, what kind of question are you asking me? Haram, go make istighfar. And this is an issue. And in Allah, it's very common, unfortunately, when it comes to a child asking their parents. And when a child goes to ask their parent, Mom, who created Allah? The mom gets angry, like, how dare you ask that question? Astaghfirullah, this is from shaitan, you should never ask this question. Okay, what did you benefit from this? Now you have ended up with this kid who didn't get his question answered. He's still confused, but now he's just too scared to ask you again. So he's going to go and ask someone else, and you don't know what answer that someone else might give you. And the same thing applies, okay, let's say you're the older sibling, and you have a younger sibling, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and they come to ask you this question. Be gentle with them. Be wise when it comes to answering this question so that they can understand. Now, what should you tell them if they ask you this question? Tell them exactly what I'm about to tell you, okay? First of all, there's many points to be mentioned. First of all, realize that Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, you've been given very limited amount of knowledge. There are many things about this world that we have no idea about. We know that angels exist. We don't know what an angel looks like. We don't know how fast an angel travels. We don't know what abilities that an angel has, okay? We don't know anything about our own souls. We understand that, okay, there is something within us that allows us to function and move and think, and that when it is taken away from the dead person, that they stop moving and functioning. Okay, but what is the soul? No human experiment today, and done since humanity started, has been able to prove that there is a soul that exists. So a soul is inside, even though it's inside you, you don't know what it is. Even your own human brain, by the way, your own human brain. To this day, scientists have not been able to discover everything about the brain. They don't know, like, how come humans are capable of thinking such complex and forming such complex thinking. Humans are the only creation of Allah Azza wa Jal who are able to think about a thought, or to create a thought and then think about what they just thought about. Think about this for a second. Humans are also the only creation that is able to have goals and dreams. You want to become something in the future. You want to become a doctor. You want to learn this in the future. You have plans for the future. Other creatures do not have this. So how come? What's so special about the human brain that allows humans to have these kind of qualities? To this day, I am telling you, scientists have failed to understand their own brain. So, my point is, if there are things that you don't understand about your own body, then do you think that you will possibly begin to understand what is Allah Azza wa Jal? And last week we mentioned this, that our logic and mental capacity is very limited, right? We will never truly understand the nature of Allah Azza wa Jal. And even when it comes to the names of Allah Azza wa Jal, when Allah Azza wa Jal says He is Ar-Rahim, Al-Kareem, we will never truly understand the extent of Allah Azza wa Jal's mercy and rahmah, or Allah Azza wa Jal's karam and generosity, right? Or His ability to create and control. So, when shaitan whispers to you, who created Allah? Realize that shaitan is laying a trap for you. And if you take his bait, you're going to find yourself in a spiral. You will never find an answer. So what do I say to this? There is a hadith that teaches us that when shaitan whispers to you this, simply say, آمنت بالله ورسله. That khalas, I believe in Allah and the messengers. Like, look, I acknowledge there are some things that I will never understand, but I still believe in Allah and the messenger. Khalas, that's it. Boom. End of the story. Very simple. Second point, you need to realize, and with this I'll conclude the hadith inshallah, you need to realize that the reason you were created is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. You have not been created to go and seek out answers. Okay? You're being tested. That's why you were created. You have been created to get tested to see Jannah or Jahannam. That's why you were created. And Allah Azza wa Jal revealed the Quran to us. Quran is not a book to answer every single question that crosses your mind. Quran is a book that teaches you how do I pass the test of this life. Okay? So if I start thinking, for example, okay, what does the fourth heaven look like? And Allah has created 7 heavens. What does the fourth heaven look like? What color is it? Does it have suns and moons? Does it have planets and creation? The answer is, look, I don't know. The Quran doesn't answer this question either. The Quran is not going to tell me what this looks like. Why doesn't the Quran tell me? Because you don't need to know. Okay, and let me put this into perspective. Let's say you guys know what is IKEA. Everybody here knows what is IKEA, the store? Let's say you go to IKEA, okay, and you buy a new piece of furniture. You buy a new table, okay? And it's one of those tables that you need to assemble, okay? And you take it back home. And you open the box and you take out the instruction manual to teach you how to assemble the table. Do you think that if I open this instruction manual, it's going to teach me how do I solve my math homework? Allah Azza wa Jal has already revealed His book to us, and we have learned the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He Himself says, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum." I have completed your deen for you. Yet the question that you have is something that is not found in the Quran and is not found in the Sunnah, and it will neither help you become a better Muslim nor will it. It's just a piece of information that will neither benefit or harm you. If you are not going to accept that, okay, our deen doesn't tell us the answer to this question because you don't need to know it, where else are you going to seek out the answer? You're going to go to the Bible or what? Are you going to go to other books? As frustrating it might be for some of us, look.
I mean, we as grown-up, we know the answer of we should do and we should submit to what Allah told us that this area we don't ask questions like I mean this is what we know when we grow up. But as kids, especially today, they know the answers are everywhere. So how can we convince them that there are some areas that you don't have to ask or you don't have to know the answer if you have a question?
Okay. Okay. So I'm trying to. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, I don't know how good of an example. I just came up with one on the spot. Okay. Let's say Mr. Cristiano Ronaldo just gave you a call. Okay? Like out of nowhere. You just picked up your phone and he was like, yo, Ayub, how's it going, bro? You know me, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say, yeah, and you're like, oh wow, and you're saying, and he's telling you this. And you're hyped up, like, wow, you're talking to Cristiano Ronaldo. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I apologize for this abrupt transition from the classroom to this full screen recording. However, unfortunately, the recording from after the hadith was explained, so the fiqh and the seerah portion got all cut off for some reason. Not sure why. So I decided to again do this recording just to cover from where we left off in the recording. So as for the hadith that is on the screen, that will be inshallah shared on in the WhatsApp group chat, inshallah, and we will be discussing this next week. So let's just quickly go through the questions. How does ignorance cause a person to become misguided? This was something that we spoke about in the Aqeedah section. And we mentioned that by definition, someone who is ignorant means someone who does not have knowledge. So how can someone remain upon the Islamic Aqeedah if they don't even know what is Islamic Aqeedah? And therefore, ignorance is a cause for someone to become misguided. Give an example of an evil role model that misguided people. We mentioned a few of those. So we mentioned the story of As-Samiri. We mentioned the story of Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i. And also, honestly, nowadays it includes all these celebrities and musicians and actors and all of these famous personalities that have been honestly given, for some reason, a very high reputation by mankind. Despite their immoral and unethical and un-Islamic actions as well. Why does the Quran say that a person who follows their desires is worse than animals? Because Allah Azza wa Jal created animals not to have intelligence. An animal by default follows its desires. Whenever it desires something, it follows it. However, Allah Azza wa Jal blessed mankind with a brain that can be used to distinguish what is a good desire and an evil desire. Therefore, when a person willingly chooses to act upon an evil desire, then this makes the person worse than an animal, according to Allah Azza wa Jal. Why is it dangerous to exaggerate in praising the righteous people? Because as history has shown, it has the possibility of leading to evil, and it has led to shirk previously, such as the people of Nuh and such as other nations as well. It introduces evil practices found to this day, such as worshipping graves, prostrating to graves, making dua and seeking blessings through dead people, and as well as idol worshipping in other religions as well. In the hadith, we defined what is shaitan. We said shaitan is a type of an evil jinn. It's an evil jinn, and every person has a shaitan that is assigned to them uh, with the only purpose of misguiding them. What are some ways to protect ourselves from shaitan? We mentioned seeking refuge in Allah, say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, constantly reciting the Quran, making it a part of your daily life, in your homes, in your own lives, and especially certain verses of the Quran, such as Ayatul Kursi, as well as some surahs like Surah Al-Ikhlas and Al-Mu'awwidhatan, Al-Falaq and Al-Nas, and also saying any adhkar that is taught to that are taught to us by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether it is when you're eating, when you're exiting or entering your home, or before you sleep. All of these are important to protect ourselves from shaitan. How come shaitan is a weak creature? We said that despite all of the qualities that a shaitan and that shaitan has, they are very weak because all they can really do to a believer is whisper to them. And a whispering is nothing but an annoying voice in the back of your head. Um, and they're simply relying on this whisper. They're hoping that the person will act upon this whispering and in order to misguide them. However, it is easy, inshallah, for any believer to protect themselves from against these whisperings. How do we deal with inappropriate thoughts or questions that sometimes arise, such as how is Allah Azza wa Jal created? And we mentioned this in a lot of detail. So we are taught in a different hadith that whenever you are exposed to these thoughts, simply put an end to them by saying, I believe in Allah and His messengers, and that's it, period. And just leave it at that. And at the end of the day, realize that we have only been given limited knowledge, and we've only been given the knowledge which teaches us how to get to Jannah. And at the end of the day, that's our purpose of being created. We have not been created to find an answer to every single question there is, or to find the details behind every fact that is stated in the Quran. Rather, the Quran is there. Rather, our own purpose is to pass the test of life, and inshallah, we enter Jannah. Once you enter Jannah, you are free to go and ask Allah Azza wa Jalla however much you want. Moving on to the fiqh section. So last week, um, we began the topic of wudu, and we spoke about the conditions of wudu, and we spoke also about the obligatory acts of wudu. Naturally, this brings us to the sunnahs of wudu. So last week we mentioned, you can look up the last lecture to see what we spoke about the conditions um, and the obligatory acts. So and I guess I just want to clarify because there did appear to be a little bit of confusion. When we say that these are the obligatory act of wudu, it means if you only do these actions, I'm talking about the obligatory, not the sunnahs that you see on the screen. I'm talking about the ones from last week. If you only do those obligatory actions, meaning washing the face and washing the arms and wiping the head and washing the feet and doing them consecutively and doing them in order. If you do all of these obligatory acts, then your wudu is valid, even if you do not wash your hands, even if you don't, wash your mouth and rinse your nose. How come? Because these acts are sunnahs. Sunnah, by definition, it is not an obligation. It is it's a highly recommended act. If you want to do a certain act of worship the proper way, you do it according to the sunnah. And in fact, I want to add that we never ever see Prophet Muhammad SAW. You will never find any hadith that tells you that Prophet Muhammad SAW made wudu only by washing his face and only by washing his arms and wiping his head and washing his feet, and then he just called it a day. No, you will never find that. So, and this is why, and this is why you are highly recommended to follow the sunnah when it comes to wudu. And this is why even some scholars in some schools of thought, they say that certain sunnahs, which I'm going to mention, they are actually obligatory. They don't say they are sunnah, they say they are obligatory. So, what are some of the sunnahs of wudu? First of all, saying Bismillah. You always begin your wudu by saying Bismillah, because in the hadith of Prophet Muhammad SAW, find in the Sunan of Abu Dawood, he tells us there is no wudu for the one who does not mention the name of Allah when doing wudu. And the majority of the scholars agree that it is sunnah to say Bismillah. Therefore, if you find yourself making wudu and then you're like, oh, I forgot to say Bismillah, it's fine. You can continue your wudu, and inshallah your wudu is valid. There are another set of scholars, there's a school of thought that says that it is fard, that it is an obligation to say Bismillah. However, the majority of scholars agree that it is sunnah. Another sunnah as well, and many people actually don't know this, is to wash your hands before wudu. I'm not talking about washing the hands 3 times at the start of the wudu, even though that is a sunnah, but washing your hands before wudu. In the hadith that is told to us by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ through Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, it's an authentic hadith found in Bukhari and Muslim. He tells us that, describing the wudu of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Uthman says, he called, meaning Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, called for water. So he told them, bring water to me. And then he poured water on his hands and washed them, and then he put his hands in the vessel. Meaning he did not put his hands in the vessel to start his wudu until he made sure his hands were clean. Therefore, we learn from this that it is sunnah to wash your hands before wudu. And in a different hadith, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that a person does not know, what kind of filth his hands was exposed to, and especially at night when someone is sleeping, they're unconscious, they don't know what they're doing with their bodies, with their body and with their muscles, right? So a person does not know what they might touch as they are sleeping, and so as such, it is a sunnah that before you begin your wudu, just a quick rinse of your hand, just to clean your hands, and then you say Bismillah, and then you begin your wudu. And of course, of the sunnahs as well of wudu, that at the beginning of wudu, at the very beginning, after you say Bismillah, you start by washing your hands 3 times, and all of us are aware of this. But this is a sunnah. In addition, rinsing the mouth and the nose thoroughly. Okay, so this is where you gargle the water. You put the water in your mouth and you spit it out 3 times, and then you do istinshaq. So you inhale some water into your nose. Don't snort the water, okay? It's not good. Just inhale a small bit of water and then exhale it right out of your nose. And the sunnah is to do it thoroughly. Like, don't just put a little bit of water into your mouth or just a little bit of water in your nose. No, do it thoroughly. Like, put a bunch of water in your mouth, swirl it, swish it in your mouth and spit it out, and do that 3 times. And the same thing, put some water into your nose and exhale, with exhale, powerfully. I don't know what the word is here, but like, do a proper exhale. Don't just put a little bit of water into your nose. However, the exception is given when you are fasting, because obviously when you're fasting, you cannot have water entering your body. That's going to break your fast. So you don't want to put too much water into your mouth such that you may swallow a little bit of water, because that will break your fast. Similarly, you do not want to inhale too much water such that it goes into a little bit of water goes inside your body, because that would also affect your fasting. So when fasting, you don't need to do it as thoroughly. However, it remains the sunnah that you need to rinse your mouth and your nose. We mentioned that washing the face is, of course, a fard. It is an obligation. However, if someone has a thick beard on their face, they should still try to wash their beard. And it is a sunnah, and this is an issue that is differed upon. But one of the opinions, it mentions that it is sunnah to do something that is called takhlilul lihya, means to run your fingers through a thick beard. To run your fingers through a thick beard. So you see some people, some men, and this is specific for the men, of course. So some men, when they grow up, they have, mashallah, very tall and bushy beards. So it is sunnah just to take some water and to after you wash your face, that you just run your fingers through your beard. And that is a sunnah. Also, it is sunnah that when it comes to wiping the head, now wiping the head is a fard. However, the sunnah here is to wipe your head using fresh water. Okay? Meaning, what does this mean? So, you finished washing your arms, okay? You finished washing your arms to the elbows. Your hands are wet. You don't just take your hands immediately as they are and wipe your head with them. Rather, the sunnah is that you put your hands under the tap again, take some new water, fresh water, and wipe your head with that. Because in the hadith found in Sahih Muslim, Abdullah ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu narrates that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu then wiped his head with fresh water, other than the water that he already had in his hands. It is also a sunnah. And I have to be careful while saying this. So rubbing, the next point that I have on the screen is to rubbing between the fingers and the toes. تخليل الأصابع. Now Allah knows best, but the hadith, which some scholars take this evidence that it is sunnah to rub between your fingers and toes, this is actually a weak hadith. And I'm on the side that this is not actually of the sunnah. However, the reason why I put this down is because I want to emphasize you have to make sure that there is water reaching between your fingers and your toes. Okay? Many people, unfortunately, they do this big mistake when they are in a hurry. They're making wudu in a hurry. So, they just, wash their hands very quickly. They wash their feet very quickly. And no water goes between the fingers or between the toes. If water does not reach these areas, then wudu is invalid. Again, you have to make sure that there is water reaching those areas. So while I'm saying that rubbing between the fingers and toes is not necessarily a sunnah, it's still good to do. Why? Because now you ensure that there is water reaching these areas and you're not going to leave them behind. And especially some people, naturally they have, very tight toes, meaning by default, if they just take their foot up and they put water on top, the water does not go between the toes because subhanAllah, they're just their toes naturally are just stuck together very, very tightly, and water does not go in between. If a person has these kind of toes, then they must rub between their toes. They must take their fingers and they must, dig in between their toes to make sure that there is water reaching in between the toes. Again, someone who makes wudu and the water does not reach the area between the finger and the toes, this wudu is invalid. So please pay attention to this point because a lot of people make this mistake. In addition, the next point we said, so starting on the right before the left. This is also a sunnah because in the hadith, authentic hadith found in al-Bukhari and Muslim, Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he liked to start on the right whenever he made wudu. Or whenever he did several things, in fact, the hadith mentions, whenever he put his shoes on, whenever he combed his hair, he would start with the right side of his hair, then the left side. And also when he used to make wudu, he would do the right hand side and then the left hand side, as we are all used to. And also when we make ghusl, as we'll mention in the future, inshallah, you start with the right side and then with the left side. Another sunnah is to wash each body parts 3 times. So we're all used to this, washing the hands 3 times, washing the face and the arms and the feet 3 times each. This is actually the sunnah. And this is the way that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, typically speaking, he always made his wudu. However, we do have some reliable hadith indicating that he was seen sometimes, very rarely, washing them once. And also there's another hadith that mentions he washed them twice. Meaning, if, let's say, I make wudu, and I start by saying Bismillah, and I wash my hands once, and I do, I rinse my mouth once, and I rinse my nose once, and and then I wash my face once, and to the end, and I just do once each time. This wudu is valid. It is valid. However, it is not following the sunnah. So hopefully we understand the difference. The sunnah is to do it 3 times. Another sunnah is using the siwak. And this is something that we already discussed in the past, I believe a couple of weeks ago in Sunan al-Fitra. Using the siwak while making wudu is one of the times where you should be using siwak, and there are many hadith that support this. And we already discussed this. And last but not least, when you finish your wudu, you finish washing your feet up to the ankle, you say the dua when you are done. What's the dua that you say when you are finished your wudu? There are three du'as or three adhkar, du'as slash adhkar that you say when you are done. The first of them is أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. Or you can say وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله. Same thing, same meaning. You're basically saying that you're saying the shahada again. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. I testify there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his slave and his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the hadith that is found in Sahih Muslim, Prophet Muhammad tells us, if a person performs wudu correctly, it's such a beautiful hadith. If a person performs wudu correctly, meaning they meet all the conditions, they do all the obligatory actions, and they're doing it according to the Sunnah, and then they say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, then the 8 gates of Jannah will be opened up for him, and he will be allowed to enter Jannah from any gate he wishes. Subhanallah. It's such a great and a beautiful reward for such a simple action. All you gotta do, take 5 seconds after wudu, say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and inshallah you will be part of the people who get rewarded like this. In another hadith, we are also taught to say, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawwabin wa min al-mutatahhirin. Meaning, which translates to, Oh Allah, make me from at-tawwabin, from people who constantly make tawbah, from always the people who always repent, and also from al-mutatahhirin, meaning from those who are always doing tahara, they're always pure and clean. In another hadith as well, we are taught that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, would also say, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Which means, all praise and all glory belongs to you, O Allah, and I testify, O Allah, that there is no God but you, and I ask you, O Allah, to forgive me, and I'm here repenting to you. So, if you want to combine, so ideally you should combine all of these adhkar at the end of your wudu. Simply say, so as soon as you finish your wudu, say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawwabin, wa min al-mutatahhirin, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. And that way now you are inshallah getting all the rewards, bi'idhnillah, from start to end, for wudu. Inshallah, next week, and I know this was a lot of information, wudu. It does need going through, several times before it really sticks to your head. So next week, inshallah, we will summarize what we've learned so far in wudu, from start to end, starting from the conditions and then labeling what is a sunnah and what is fard, just so that, again, it just sticks to in our mind and that we are very clear of what is fard and what is sunnah. Moving on to the section about the seerah. Last week we discussed the first revelation. We discussed the incident of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was up in the cave of Hira, and then Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, he descended down and he gave him the first verses of Iqra. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was very terrified, and he ran back to Khadija radiallahu anha, and he said, Zammiluni, Zammil, cover me up. And Khadija radiallahu anha, she calmed him down. She calmed him down, and she supported him, and then she went to her cousin Waraqa ibn Nawfal, and she told him what happened, and then Waraqa was the one who said that basically this is a sign of a prophet, that this is the same angel that came down to Musa alayhi salam. Now, from this first revelation, after this took place, and after Prophet Muhammad was told by Waraqa ibn Nawfal that you are a prophet, interestingly, the revelation actually stopped for some time. Jibreel stopped coming down. And it is mentioned that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, after, you can imagine, after he took some time, he calmed down, he got over his state of terror. He actually started wanting to see Jibreel again. He was curious, what was that all about? So it is mentioned that he would start to go to the cave of Hira, he would go around the mountains, he would hope to see Jibreel again, but Jibreel would not come. And this caused Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to start feeling a state of sadness. Like, maybe I'm seeing things, maybe, what's going on to me. And one day, Allahu A'lam, perhaps one day as he was going back home from going up in the mountains or whatnot, one day as he was walking, he heard his name being called, O Muhammad. He heard his name being called. Now, just like a normal human being would do, he looked to his front, he didn't see anything. He looked behind him, he didn't see anything. He looked to his right, to his left, there was nobody around him. Now, subhanAllah, when someone calls your name, you don't think to look up to the ceiling. So then Prophet Muhammad says, I looked up to the sky and I saw the same angel that came to me in the cave of Hira. He saw Jibreel alayhi salam, but he saw him slightly differently this time. And he says, I saw Jibreel sitting on a throne between the heavens and the earth. Remember, in the cave of Hira, Jibreel came down in his original angel form. Massive, big, massive form. Blocks the entire sky from how big he is. 600 wings. That's how big Jibreel is. This time, it was a little bit different. He was sitting on a throne between the heavens and the earth. And subhanAllah, even though Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was so excited, or he was curious to see Jibreel again, and he felt like he was ready, in fact, the same story repeats himself. He says, I started shaking, I started, shivering, I fell to my knees from how scared I was. Again, he's seeing Jibreel again. And then I got up and I rushed back home. The same story. I rushed back home to Khadija and I said to her, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me up, cover me up. He's scared. And so Khadija radiallahu anha covered him up. However, this time, Jibreel didn't just let Prophet Muhammad ﷺ go. He followed him and he spoke to him. What did he say? He addressed Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and he said to him, Ya ayyuhal muddathir, O you who is covered up, you who is wrapped up right now in your covering. Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir, get up, throw away your covering and start warning the people. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. And as you are doing this, make sure to do takbir and praising of your Lord. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. And as you are warning the people, make sure you are pure. You are purifying your garments and that you yourself, you are pure from any sins. وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ. And continue abandoning the idols just like you have been doing. وَلَا تَمْنُن تَسْتَكْثِرْ. And don't do favors to people and expect anything in return. Because you're not doing that favor for their sake, you're doing that favor for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And for the sake of your Lord, have patience. And this is, by the way, indicating you need to have patience because the life that you're going to be living, Ya Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's not going to be an easy life. You're going to go through lots of difficulties. You're going to go through lots of hardships and sad situations. You're going to need patience in your journey. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. So this was the second revelation and the second surah to be revealed in the Quran, and that is Surah Al-Muddathir. Now, let's pause here for a second. When we are saying that the revelation, we said first revelation, second revelation, we keep hearing these buzzwords, Wahi, Jibreel came down. What is actually revelation in the first place? There are actually many types of wahi or many types of revelation. What is revelation in the first place? What does it mean that Jibreel is inspiring Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Inspiration means it's a form of a direct communication. It's a communication between Allah Azza wa Jal and certain humans that He chose from mankind, and these are the prophets. This is how Allah Azza wa Jal communicates with mankind through revelation. Now, what does that communication look like? There are 7 types of revelation. Number 1 is something that we actually discussed previously last week, and that is true dreams. And interestingly, this is something that any one of us today can still experience. People to this day, sometimes as they are sleeping, they experience, such a vivid dream, a beautiful dream, or sometimes they see events from the future, and then the next day it takes place. This is a true dream from Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is a form of revelation. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ experienced this. This was the first type of revelation that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ experienced before he became a prophet. The second type is an inspiration from the angel into the heart of the prophet, but the angel does not physically appear. So Sometimes we're told that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he there's a hadith. I'm trying to just remember the hadith. There's a hadith from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that he says that the Ruh al-Qudus inspired me, meaning Jibreel inspired me, that a person does not die until he has finished his entire lifespan, and that a person does not die until he has taken his entire rizq. However, this inspiration that he's mentioning in this hadith, he's saying that Jibril did not appear in front of me. He simply inspired me. How did he inspire me? He inspired me straight into my heart. He did not come in front of me. So this is another type of inspiration. This is called ilham. Ilham. The third type of revelation is that the angel appears in the form of a man. And Jibril often appeared in front of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the form of a Sahabi by the name of Dihya al-Kalbi. And he would then tell him the verses of the Quran. And this was easier for Prophet Muhammad ﷺ because it's almost like he's interacting with a human being. And we discussed previously in a previous lecture the famous hadith of Jibril. You know the hadith when the Sahaba were sitting with Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and then a strange man entered upon them. He was wearing very white clothing and he had very black hair and nobody recognized him. And then at the end of the hadith, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, this was Angel Jibril. So this is an example that Jibril appeared in the form of a man. So this is the third type of inspiration. The fourth type of wahi is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he enters a state of wahi. Now, what does this mean? We don't really know, but we are given descriptions of what that looks like. The Sahaba, they say we would see the Prophet ﷺ, all of a sudden his eyes would close and his head would lower down and he would become unresponsive. So it's almost like he loses consciousness, but it's not that he's losing consciousness. He's entering into some kind of different dimension. He's in a state of wahi. And he would receive revelation through this state. However, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ describes this to us, and he says that this was a very difficult type of revelation to him. It was physically and mentally difficult for him. He would say, sometimes revelation comes to me in the form of the ringing of bells. Now, what does the ringing of bells mean? We don't really know, but he says, like, it's very difficult upon me. Aisha radiallahu anha, she would narrate that sometimes in a very cold night, I would see Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sweating in a very cold night when he was in a state of wahi. And it was also a very heavy revelation. Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu, one time he said that one time Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was resting on my lap and then he entered a state of wahi. And he says, I felt such a weight on my lap to the point where I thought that my thighs were going to break. So this is a type of revelation. Allahu alam how it really comes to him, but Prophet Muhammad feels a form of hardship and there is a sense of heaviness in it as well. The fifth type of revelation is that when an angel appears in its original form. And we already saw this once in the first revelation, Jibreel alayhi salam coming down in his original form. And this will also happen once again, and we will discuss this during Al-Isra and Al-Mi'raj. The sixth form of revelation is direct inspiration from Allah Azza wa Jal into the heart of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ without an angel in between. So this is different from the second one. The second one, we said the angel inspires the heart of the prophets through his heart. The sixth type people are saying Allah Azza wa Jal does it straight into the heart of Prophet Muhammad. And this also happened at one point in the Isra and the Mi'raj. And last but not least, the direct speech of Allah Azza wa Jal to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this happened in the private meeting that Prophet Muhammad had with Allah Azza wa Jal during an Isra and Mi'raj. And it also, by the way, happened to Prophet Musa alayhi salam when he spoke directly with Allah Azza wa Jal. So these are the types of revelation. Moving on. So now after the second revelation, the books of Sirah, they would, last week we mentioned that the da'wah, that the prophethood is split up into the two periods. The Meccan period, which lasted 13 years, and the Medinan period, which lasted 10 years. The Meccan period can actually be broken further into three stages. And there is the private da'wah, and that lasted for 3 years, and that's the current, that's where we are currently at. And why is it called private da'wah? It's because, as it sounds, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is inviting people to Islam privately. So only his close members, only his close family members, his close friends. He's not going out in the streets in front of the Kaaba and he's saying, oh, people come and accept Islam. He's not doing that. It's a private da'wah. The second stage of da'wah is the public da'wah inside Mecca. So this is where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he goes out in front of the people, in front of the Kaaba, and he starts telling the people, don't worship the idols, worship Allah, and convert to Islam. This is the public da'wah inside of Mecca, and that lasted for around 6 years or 6 or 7 years, 6 years inside Mecca. And notice, by the way, here, I'm not saying this is not the third year of Hijrah or fourth year of Hijrah. This is the third. I'm saying the third year, 3 years after the first revelation. So that is the third year of Da'wah, not the third year of Hijrah, because Hijrah has not been done yet. Okay, so this is the public Da'wah now inside of Mecca. The third stage, public Da'wah outside of Mecca. So this is Prophet Muhammad ﷺ going to different cities like Ta'if, like sending people to Yathrib, which is Medina, and spreading Islam there outside of Mecca. This all falls within the Meccan period, and inshallah we will cover all of this in details. Now, with the appearance of Jibreel and with the verses of Quran that got revealed to him, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ understands, I have a mission given to me by Allah Azza wa Jal that I need to get up and I need to start warning the people and telling them to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. So he began giving da'wah. And as I mentioned, this was the private da'wah. So he went to his close family members. Now, this is always a question between people. Who was the first person to ever accept Islam? And the scholars always they say, no, it is that person. No, it is this person. So we give an answer that satisfies everybody. The first lady to accept Islam was Khadija radiallahu anha. Because as soon as Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came back home from the cave of Hira, terrified, and she calmed him down and she supported him and she said, you're fine, you're not going crazy. As soon as she said this, she converted into the religion that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was preaching, even though, subhanAllah, she didn't even know what she was converting to. So the first lady to convert was Khadija radiallahu anha. The first child to accept Islam was Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Ali bin Abi Talib, of course, is the son of Abu Talib, the uncle of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So he's the cousin of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. However, Abu Talib was a very poor man. He was not capable, and he had a lot of children. And he struggled to feed his children and to take care of them. So after Prophet Muhammad ﷺ got married, as an honoring for his uncle Abu Talib, he said, you know what? Let me take Ali from you. I will take care of him and I will raise him as my own son. I will raise him and I will take care of him. So Ali bin Abi Talib literally grew in the house of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He viewed Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a father figure. So what's a child going to do when he sees his father figure accept Islam and convert to this religion? Understandably, this child whom loves, and obviously Ali bin Abi Talib loves Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he also accepts Islam. The first freed slave to accept Islam was a Sahabi by the name of Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu anhu. And he was also someone who lived in the house of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was originally a slave that was gifted to him from Khadija, and then Prophet Muhammad ﷺ freed him, and he, quote unquote, adopted him as his own son. And this is Zayd ibn Haritha. So he was also living in the same house, and so we understand that he was of the first people to accept Islam. The first free man to accept Islam was none other than Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. His name is Abdullah ibn Abi Qahafa radiyallahu anhu. And there is no doubt that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq were close friends even before Islam came. So it's not very unthinkable to see that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would be amongst the first, and he was the first free man to accept Islam. This is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. And we can even add a fifth point here, and the first elderly man to accept Islam, perhaps we can say, is Waraqa ibn Nawfal. Because Waraqa, he is the person who told Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that you are a prophet. And then he died a few days after this, so he never actually got to hear the message of Islam. But Waraqa ibn Nawfal, inshallah, according to the hadith, it mentions that he was wearing, that Prophet ﷺ saw him in a dream wearing white garments and enjoying gardens. So perhaps Waraqa ibn Nawfal, we can say, is the first elderly man to enter Jannah. So with that said, inshallah, we will continue next week. Let's just quickly cover the questions. So if a person performs wudu and only washes their face, their arms, wipes their head, and washes their feet, and of course, they fulfill all the conditions of wudu, is this wudu valid? And explain why. As I was explaining earlier, yes, this is valid because these are all the obligatory acts of wudu. So if a person only does the obligatory acts of wudu, then according to the majority, this is a valid wudu. But you are not doing it according to the sunnah. If a person performs wudu and only washes each body part once, is this wudu valid? And explain why. Yes, it is valid, we mentioned, because in the list of sunnahs, you can look it up again, we said washing each body part 3 times is a sunnah. And sunnah means that if you don't do it, it's not going to invalidate it. Okay? So you can wash it once, but you should be washing it 3 times. So if you wash it once, is it valid? Yes, it is valid. Let's say a person is in a hurry and while they are making wudu, they're doing wudu very quickly, they wash their feet and they just quickly put water on the top and they don't let the water come between the toes. Is this wudu valid? And explain why. And we said that no, this is not valid. And we have to be very careful of this because water, it has to reach all the areas of the, when we say wash your feet, I mean every single spot in your foot. There shouldn't even be 1 millimeter of your foot that is not on that does not get washed. Everything needs to be washed, including between the toes. Let's say a person was making wudu, but then while they're making wudu, perhaps they're washing their arms, and then they remember, oh, I forgot to say Bismillah at the start. Is this wudu valid? We said, yes, it is a valid wudu. Because saying Bismillah is a recommended sunnah. You should be saying it at the start. But let's say for whatever reason you forgot, you don't need to restart your wudu. Your wudu is valid, inshallah. Now, moving on to the seerah, why did the revelation stop for some time? This was to give the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ a little bit of a chance to recover and to make him a little bit curious about what was that whole first revelation about? What was this angel that I saw? And subhanAllah, think about what would have happened. Like imagine how terrified Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was on the first day that Jibreel came down. Imagine if Jibreel came down the next day. What would be the case of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? So he needs a little bit of time to recover, to kind of just absorb what really took place and to calm down and relax and make him curious about what did I just see. So that's, Allahu A'lam, the wisdom for the revelation being stopped for some time. How did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ feel when he saw Jibreel again? And we mentioned the same story repeated itself. He was very terrified. He started shaking and he ran back to Khadija. What are the stages of da'wah in Mecca? We said that there are 3 stages of da'wah in Mecca. There is the private da'wah, and that's what we're currently discussing. There is the public da'wah inside Mecca. And then later on, before the hijrah, the public da'wah outside of Mecca. Who were the first converts of Islam to Islam? The first lady to convert was Khadija radiallahu anha. The first child to convert was Ali bin Abi Talib. The first free man to convert was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And the first freed slave was Zayd ibn Haritha radiallahu anhu. And inshallah, we will continue our discussion next week. The homework questions will be posted in the group chat as usual. Jazakum Allahu khairan. And once again, I apologize. I don't know what happened to the recording for the second half of the lecture. Hopefully, we won't have to do, we won't run into this situation again. Jazakum Allahu khairan for listening. We'll see you next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.